Welcome to the Rise Higher podcast. Today I have a very special guest, Daya Vaidya. So happy that you're here. We met through a women's group.
Yes.
And I remember, I think I was only in there for a couple weeks, and you shared something so personal and so beautiful and were such an example of the power of vulnerability and how it inspired everybody else in the group, and then how, everybody got to support you in some way. And as I connected with you, we chatted more, and I found out, why you shared that. I would love for you to open up and kind of share your journey a little bit.
Yes, it was crazy because it just kind of came out. It was one of those moments where you don't expect to do that, but it just happens, I think, because you're sort of led to express something because you sort of need to connect with other people. And I think in that connecting with other people, you find out a lot of people are going through similar things.
Right.
That's the thing about it. I think when we hold it all in, while you feel like that's being strong and you feel like that's being, the thing you're supposed to do,
Yep.
you really realize that when you express it and tell it and tell your story, how many people relate, and that connects you to them. So for me, I think a women's group was a safe place.
Yep.
To share that. I'd had a crazy journey that started 4 years ago with, I was on a hit show on TV in New York. I was like, the dream. I just married my husband. We had a little baby. We were in New York, a great apartment. I was, living the life, getting driven to the show, doing the actor life. It was amazing. And just living every part of my dream I've ever imagined since I was a little girl. And I mean, it was one of those things where I was like, is this gonna last? It's so great. You play that trick on your mind, and I'm like, no, I've earned this, I've worked so hard.
Yeah.
But that little voice can mess with you, sometimes a little voice that has that doubt, like, do I deserve this? Did I, will this all go away? And I think we have to watch that little voice sometimes, because it can mess with you, and sometimes I feel like create this doubt. And so that little voice got a little too loud, I feel like, for me. And I almost questioned, do I belong here? And all of a sudden, the crazy thing, this wonderful thing, I feel like it just switched on me. It just all sort of fell apart because I woke up and I ended up, this part wasn't bad. I ended up getting pregnant with twins, which was amazing.
Yeah.
Identical twin boys.
Amazing.
Now that was a miracle.
Yeah.
That just happened, and that was amazing. It was like, what? But I was on a show. I was on a series where I had to be very physical, and it was a procedural, and I was a cop, and all of a sudden I'm huge.
Wow.
And I'm getting pregnant and bigger and bigger. They had to hide me behind desks and hide me behind, and the producers were like, oh my God, they were very supportive, but they were like, this is my big break. And I'm like, what is happening? Why is this happening at the same time? But I was just embracing it. And the babies were born, and I've got 3 kids now. And I'm like, 1 to 3 real fast. And I'm on a show, and then the show ends, and I just think that it wasn't working. I ended up not coming back for, a lot of logistical reasons. They changed stuff. They didn't bring me back on the show. And I'm nursing my babies one day. They're really little, and I find a lump. And I'm like, this is just for those mamas who breastfeed, you get lots of plugged ducts, you get lots of stuff going on there. So you figure, not a big deal, right? Nothing, yeah. So, but it didn't go away. And I went to see my gynecologist, and the whole thing, he was like, oh, it's nothing. I'm so young, no history of anything. No worries, just go home, you're fine. Still didn't go away. And then something was nagging me. I just had one of those feelings you have inside where you're like, something's not quite right. So I went back and said, no, let's check this out. And I always tell this little story.
Good for you that you trusted yourself on that one this time, where you're like, no, we gotta.
Key, always listen to your body. It tells you things.
Yep.
It kept getting this message at night. It was like, no, go back. And you want to push it away, but you got to listen to those that little voice. So thank God I did. I went, and without going through every single step, long story short, it turned out to be invasive breast cancer. And I'm like in my 30s, 3 little kids, they were 20 months at the time, not even. I was like, what? What? I mean, it was such a shock. It was such a shock because I do all the right things, quote unquote. I eat healthy, I don't drink, I'm not smoke, I work out.
Check, check, check. This shouldn't happen.
Had babies, like all of the risk factors. I mean, it was just crazy. And I think that moment, my poor husband, he took it really hard. It was really hard on him. I was kind of like, I went into warrior mode. I was like, all right, well, no, not me. And here's the thing, when you have little kids, that's the first point of when something hard hits you. You sort of take stock and you go, I have little children, okay? Mama can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Period, end of story. Now I cannot go anywhere.
Yeah.
I just had to infuse that will and be like, what do we need to do? So I went into major research mode and just started researching everything I possibly could. I didn't take doctors' words for it. I went to doctors and I listened to everything they had to say, but I encourage anybody who's dealing with medical stuff, do your own research. You have to, because you listen to them, but it's your body. And I cannot tell you, there was stuff that happened along the way. Had I not done that, I would have probably made some very bad decisions in terms of surgeries and different treatment options. But because I had been doing research and listening to my body, I really feel like I was on a good path. And then the crazy thing is, so I went through a double mastectomy, treatment, 4 surgeries, I believe. It was like 4 different surgeries because of the way it all works. It's very complicated. Anyone who's been through breast cancer, it's like not a little thing. And the thing I also want to tell people, if you have a friend who has breast cancer and is getting a mastectomy, one thing not to say to them, oh my God, it's so awesome, you're going to have a new boobs. And
do not say that.
Don't say that.
No. I don't want new boobs. I like my boobs.
Because what people don't realize about it is augmentation is different than a mastectomy. You lose all your breast tissue, you lose all your feeling, so it's way different. And I think everyone means well. But it's just, hey, I didn't know either. I got educated on it too. And I was like, okay, so breast cancer, little babies, and my husband had to take care of me. So, you kind of go from being an actor on the show, living the life, to basically we went from that to getting wiped out. Financially, everything. We lost everything because the way insurance works in our country, as we all know, is very tricky. And, there's not a lot of lifelines. And so thank God my family, came to support, and we had a lot of support with my family, but we basically lost everything.
Wow.
So we had to kind of regroup and start from scratch, go back to the basics, lean on each other a lot.
I couldn't imagine how you were feeling at that moment, because it's almost every area of your life when your health isn't there, it's like you can't attend to all the other things. What did you do to kind of lean back into yourself to be able to support yourself through that? I know you were leaning on others, but what did you have to do to be there for you?
The number one thing for me is physical. I knew that you kind of have a choice. And there's a stark choice when you're facing mortality. And I feel like even if you're not facing mortality, you can do this. But because when you're facing mortality, it really puts it into hyper overdrive. So basically you have a choice when you're facing any hard thing, is either you're going to really live or you're not. And living can mean, it doesn't mean always literally living, but living your most fulfilled life, living your highest being, your highest option. I always call it your highest option. What is your personal highest option? And in order to find that, there were 2 things I had to do. One was be quiet and still, and that could be at any time. There wasn't any specific thing. I didn't meditate at 8 a.m. every morning. I didn't have time to do any of that. For me, it was just when I found a moment in the day to just breathe and sit still, take a breath, and ask that question. And I'd literally ask the question and put that intention out there. What is my path right now? What is my highest path? I'd breathe into that and I'd say, guide me. And whatever your spirituality is, you know, I'm spiritual. I'm not very religious, but I'm very spiritual. But if you're religious, if it's God, if it's the universe, whatever it is that you're asking, you have to first set that intention and ask the question and say what it is. And then, this is the big thing I always say, then you have to listen. Then you have to listen, because a lot of times we go, what do I do? And then we don't stop and pay attention because the signs start coming. And even when you're really sick, I noticed those signs are very loud and clear.
What were some signs that you saw along the way?
So my big one was when I did that, because I had been going, I was so ambitious. I was an actress and you couldn't stop me. I was a mom. I mean, I worked so hard, and everything taught me, like, you just work, and you're gonna get what you want. And the first voice, the little voice when I just stopped and listened, was slow down. Slow down. It is not a race. Honor your body and just stop for a second. I mean, it was like screeching halt, actually, for me, because that's one of my issues, and we all have our own thing, but mine was stop. And
for some people, you're like, speed up. Yours is slow down.
And that's what you have to figure out, what your thing is, like, you know, because everyone's is different. And but if you're quiet, it will tell you. It will really tell you. And it was loud and clear for me. It was like yelling at me. And I had no choice. I had to stop. And then the second part was I had a big thing with seeking validation, or not being in my own affirmation, if that makes sense. How do I put this? I would look outwardly for that validation of that I'm okay, that I'm doing okay, that something's working. I think that's a common one.
Oh yeah, looking for external validation to say you're on the right track, or you're worthy, or you're enough, which that doesn't really get anywhere, because if you don't believe it, what people say doesn't matter.
Exactly, and it can spiral you, and it expends your life force and your own. And that was the thing that was also loud and clear, that I literally was expending my life force, and it can make you sick. You know, I'm not saying it's my fault. You know, it's not like cancer is your fault, but I do believe that there's a certain measure of introspection and taking responsibility. I think that's important. It doesn't mean you wallow or feel sorry for yourself or blame yourself, but there's an element of you got to face it. You got to kind of face whatever it is that you're doing in that personal responsibility. And I think that's important. And you do that without beating yourself up. And so that was the sweet spot I had to find, because it's not easy. It's a balance.
Totally.
You know what I mean? You have to wake up. You have to be honest. I don't believe in the, oh, it's fine and everything's fine and I'm just going to be, for me, and you know, if that works, fine. But for me, it's about waking up every day and going, what do I need to shift to get my highest good? What do I need to shift? Something needs to shift. And it doesn't mean that I'm bad or something's wrong with me. We all have growth and places to go.
Yeah, I feel like that's why we're here on the planet, is to grow. And what I love is like that quality of that question. You know, the questions direct our lives and direct our minds and our hearts. And I feel that so many times we ask crappy questions. What's wrong with me? Will I ever get out of this? Why did this happen to me? And I love that you dropped, instead of that, you slowed yourself down and you started asking a question that would move you forward and up and out, essentially, right? Of the challenge that you were in. I mean, because you could have taken it in either direction. You know?
And you can go, it's very easy to go into blame. I mean, that's an easy victimhood, blame. It feels good sometimes. And I'm not saying I never did that, because I did. I had days.
Are you human?
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So when I say all this, it doesn't mean that I didn't have days. Of course I did. There were days that I was, why me, and crying every single morning, and of course that's part of it, working through that and finding my way out of that. I call it the spiral mode, and sometimes I give myself 2 days of that, like literally 2 days. I go 2 days. One day, it depends. This I get very technical. It's funny with myself. It's like a game. I go, okay, one day to wallow like you've never wallowed before.
Ooh.
And just go there. All, with no holds bar. I'm crying. I'm feeling sorry for myself. I'm going to just go there.
Do you forewarn your husband and your kids first? Like,
Yes,
babe,
he knows.
24-hour wallow day.
Yes, and
I'm
he
going
knows.
in.
He knows no fixing it, no giving
Good.
me advice. Just let me do it. I will go in the room, and the kids don't quite understand. The kids, I just go, you got to take them out. Like, keep them away from mama. But you got to have that. Like, I have that, but then I feel like and you get it out, and then, all right, get back up.
I love that, because the whole saying of you have to go through your experience too, because sometimes when we sidestep it, right, I've heard the saying like spiritual bypassing, because the intention is for you to get some lesson and grow, or to heal some part within you too, or it's traumatic when you find out things like you have cancer or whatever other things have happened to you, that while you're going through it, giving yourself space to just be in it and to feel how you feel, but not get stuck there.
Exactly.
Because that's when you go into kind of that victim energy versus responsibility. But I love the creating space to.
I think a good analogy I've always used is yoga, because when you're doing yoga and you're hitting poses, they're painful, they're difficult, and they always talk about when you're in those poses, take note, you take stock of that feeling, you're paying attention to it. You're feeling it, it's there, so you're not denying it or pushing it away, but you're not indulging in it. And that's the difference, I think. It's like, it's not about not feeling things. It's so important to feel it, but you just don't indulge into the point where it becomes the master of you.
Completely. You choose, this is my expression in this moment, and that's okay, and noticing it. Sometimes even one thing I've been really practicing a lot is non-judgment. Is that, if you are a mess on the floor, it's like, here I am, just a mess on the floor. I'm not judging it.
Exactly.
And then, if you're experiencing the opposite, same thing, and just allow yourself to be.
And or when it's like really painful, and I've had, talks with friends about this, about that feeling that most people have experienced, that moment in the morning when you don't want to get up. You don't want to get out of bed. And a lot of people suffer from depression and anxiety and different things. And that's a common thing people talk about, where it's, I can't even get out of bed. I can't even live. Like, it's just that bad. And I think those are the moments that it's really like, I think we so badly want to escape and push it away. And there is something about riding the wave of it, just like you would in the ocean. And you really go on it, and you let it move through you, literally, in your body.
Emotions are energy in motion. Let that energy move. Don't block it, don't stop it, don't hold it in, because that's where eventually people might explode, or they start to also create sickness in their body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why sometimes with drugs, and I don't judge it, people do what they have to do with medication, but I do feel like it always should be the very, 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 very last resort, because it's so important to not numb it, to feel it. I have this one little funny thing I do that it helps me. I don't know, because it doesn't numb it, but it just sort of gives me the ability to deal when I was sick, especially when I was getting a lot of treatment. And it was just so tough. I would take really, really, really dark chocolate and a really high-grade green tea. And the combination of dark, and I suggest to anybody to try it. Some people might not respond to it. It depends on your own body. And at night it would be maybe a little glass of red wine with dark chocolate, and in the daytime it was green tea and dark chocolate. And I cannot tell you, that is one of the things that it helped me so much.
How so?
It does something. So Japanese green tea is
antioxidants.
Amazing.
Yeah.
for all of this. I mean, and it's almost like a fine wine. You can go and even research it, sencha versus matcha versus all of the different kinds of green teas, and you want to get organic, but it really, really makes a difference in your body chemistry. Sencha relaxes you and takes away that anxiety. Matcha helps if you're feeling depressed and you can't get out of bed. The matcha gets you up. And the dark chocolate has all kinds of antioxidants and stuff in it that literally elevate your mood.
Do you get the dark chocolate in the bars, or are you talking about even like the cacao nibs?
You can do either. I like to do the bars because I kind of like a little bit of, it has to be above 70%.
Okay.
And I try to get fair trade and all of that stuff because, it just is the cleanest. But I thought I was going to need to do, during this whole period, medication and stuff like that. And I was like, I literally use that as my coping mechanism to help me get up out, to run, to be physical when you just don't feel like doing anything and I'm in pain. Or
did you stay physical in the time when you're going through your treatments? Or, I mean, because I know you mentioned that exercise, getting physical is what helps you when you're in that struggle.
It's a huge, so the other thing is the cancer 2 years later came back. That was the other thing that everybody should know. It came back, which was even more devastating. And it came back in my lymph nodes, which was really, really scary. And then I was really worried about it being spread all over, and I had to go through treatment again. And that's when I had to do a lot of radiation. And all the time I was doing radiation, I found that if I created a ritual, so it was always the same time every day, your radiation, you have to go at the same time, and it's for the certain period of time that you can't miss. And I found that if I ran about at least 20 to 30 minutes before I went, and it was always like kind of a 45 minutes before I got there, and had a really good green drink. Again, a random thing I figured out, but I was experimenting because the side effects are so hard. You're really hit by side effects. You're tired and you can't do anything and you feel so sick. But when I did that combination, I just found the combination of running, getting my heart rate up, and a green drink and eating really clean helped so much. It got me through. And that's true with all the treatment. So how I recovered from the surgeries, again, it's diet. And diet is so much also for mood. I think people don't realize
how much it affects them.
Yes, big time.
Yeah.
A lot of sometimes the stuff we're going through are nutritional and supplemental kind of deficiencies. I mean, a lot of stuff like if you don't get enough calcium, you're going to be in an annoyed, bad mood.
Yeah, you don't even realize. I went and had my panels done, and just seeing things that I was allergic to or things that I needed more of. And I think a lot of people don't even know to do this. And all they hear is general things like, oh, have more greens or have this type of protein. But everyone's body chemistry is different, and it's really discovering what works for you, but also making sure you put that good stuff in to sustain yourself.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of, and it goes back to what we were saying, is the being quiet to figure out what you need. Your body will tell you when you start eating cleaner, you do notice that it'll speak to you. You know what I mean? It'll say, no, this doesn't feel so good. We all know what that feels like. I mean, it's hard. It's hard some days, you just, to maintain this. And again, I always say, be easy. I don't do this perfectly. It was not a perfect situation. I didn't do this it wasn't so smooth and clean and great. I don't want to give that impression. I didn't wake up every day, I ran perfectly 25 minutes before my radiation and it was all fantastic. I mean, I don't want to paint the picture that it's just so simple. It's not simple. It's just one of those things where you kind of just engage that will and make that choice.
Were there moments, because I know your why was huge, your kids.
Yeah.
That is enough to...
Huge motivator.
Yeah, to keep that will going the whole entire time. Were there any moments that you had where you were kind of actually, I don't know. Did you have any of those moments?
Oh, God, yeah. And those moments, that's the part I'll get emotional about, because there's... there's a moment when you face an illness that you could die. I think there's always a part of you, and people don't talk about this, that lightly says to you, you know what? That wouldn't be so bad. You could just let go of all of this and just disappear. And what I didn't expect was that would be somehow, it was like the light at the tunnel was enticing. There was this moment of like, maybe I'll just go that route. That would be easier. I mean, I wouldn't have to worry about bills or, you think about literally like stuff, it just feels so kind of calling to you. It feels like an easier way to go. So there was a particular night I remember very strongly when I was waiting to find out if it had spread everywhere. And I was waiting for that phone call. And it was the night before I was going to find out. And I was kind of just deciding, okay, if it's in my brain and in my liver and in the, if this is what's happening, am I okay with that? And I went to this place that really scared me. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm good. They'll be okay. My kids will be okay. My husband will be able to take care of them and they'll be okay. But then a little voice, that same little voice goes, no, you're not done. You're not done with them. You're not done in this life. You're not done with what you have to do. This isn't the end of your story. And I just felt strongly that it wasn't the end of my story. And that voice became louder. And I decided to follow that voice instead. The other one still called to me, I'm not gonna lie. It does. It still sometimes pops up and goes, this could come back. It could do. I mean, it's a little thing when with stuff, anybody with a terminal illness or something that like that little voice comes and messes with you.
What do you do in the moments when that little voice wants to come back and mess with you?
I go back to that. That's not my story. That's not my story. I have a different story I'm writing. My story's different. It's not my time. And I just feel that way. And when it is, one day, it's down the line. That's in the future, because I'm gonna be here and I'm gonna live it every second, and I'm gonna create something really amazing, and I'm on a mission to.
Yeah.
So I just try to not feed it too much. I acknowledge it, it's there. I'm like, you should, you shut up.
It's that. Hey, it's like the what is that? Two Wolves. Do you know what I'm talking about? It was I'm gonna totally botch this up, but
no, it's okay.
It's they're basically saying that there's two wolves inside of you.
Oh.
Like a little boy goes to his grandfather and he says that he feels this inner turmoil and that there's a good wolf and a bad wolf, and they're fighting, and the boy says, well, which one wins? And the grandfather says, whichever one you feed.
Yeah.
And it's so true. I think that's the dialectic, or like the that is us as humans. We've got the ego, we've got the soul that kind of is dancing in a way, and then we, as the enlightened observer of our thoughts, get to choose which one am I going to empower.
Absolutely.
I
love that. That's exactly what it is. It's who do you feed? Which voice do you feed?
Yep.
Which voice? Because we have all those voices all the time, and you can choose.
Yeah.
Which voice? And I mean, sometimes it's as much as literally writing down in a journal, which I do.
I do that too. Dump it.
Yeah.
Get it out on the page. Let it. It's almost like when we're talking about emotions. Let yourself feel the emotion. Let that part of you speak too, that needs to say, I feel not good enough, or I feel angry, or I feel whatever, and just put it on the page.
Yeah.
Let it express itself so that you can let it go.
Yeah, exactly. And so that you're in, or write the letter, or whatever anger or whatever you're holding on to, you know, really getting that out of your body so it doesn't do damage, you know, or our narrative. Sometimes we have our own story we tell that we also have to let go of.
Yeah.
You know, that we all have our little story from growing up, or what our parents did, or what didn't do, or did, you know. And that's part of it too, kind of like unraveling that.
What stories, or a story, do you have any that you've over the years noticed and had to let go of? Maybe even the stories that you had in this whole process of
I think the big one for
cancer.
me, it goes back to cancer, unfortunately. I lost my dad to cancer in my early 20s. And from the time of diagnosis to the time he died was only 10 months. And he was a very spiritual person and very enlightened and smart. But when he got sick, he made a decision to go. And I could see that. At the time, I was in denial about it. And it was really hard at that time because I was, like I said, ambitious and being an actress, and that was in the beginning of my career. And when he was in the hospital and going through all of that, I had to audition. I had to do stuff. I was too busy. And I was like, he's not going to die. He's my dad.
Yeah.
He's so strong. You know, no way. I went about my business. I was like, you know, we're fine. I had a very good upbringing, so I didn't have a lot of baggage from upbringing. It was more like, everything's good in my life. Nothing ever goes bad. He'll be fine. And I didn't take walks with him when he wanted to take walks. I didn't always go to lunch with him when he wanted to go to lunch because I was busy. And I remember the last week when he was in the hospital, my mother had to kind of shake me and say, it was hard. She said, your dad's dying and you got to be here. You know, I was like, no, he's not. No, he's not. She was like, no, you need to be here. And I'm so glad she did that, because even though I was a knucklehead, it took me a while. At least in the last kind of 2 weeks, I was there, and I was there very strong. But going back to the story, what that did was when he did pass, I had a lot of time, a lot of years after that happened, where my story was, people get sick when I am following my dream.
Ooh.
It was a big one, because I then associated, I am going after what I go for me, then someone's going to get sick and someone's going to die because I'm not going to be there. And so I really did a number on myself.
And that was probably an unconscious decision too. It's not like you went, oh,
no,
it's
it
all
was
unconscious.
not conscious. I didn't realize I was doing that for the longest time. I just hit nothing but brick walls, and I realized I was no longer felt that I could be successful, because the last time I really went for it, he got sick and died, and I wasn't there for him. And it took a long time, a lot of rewriting that story to say to myself, no, that's not it. It's still hard, because then I got, that's why it's a weird moment when I was on a show and then I got sick. It was kind of played into that same narrative. It's really tricky, we can create these things. So it's really about rewiring that.
Completely.
Yeah. And whatever you got to do to rewire it, I know you do hypnosis.
I do hypnosis.
I think that's a big one.
Huge. Well, we learned through hypnosis and repetition.
Yeah.
Well, when we were kids growing up, we were in pure hypnosis, just saying yes to everything we were learning and creating associations. And that's what guides us. I always say our planet is just a bunch of kids in adult bodies running around, interacting with each other, right?
Yeah.
And but that is one way, and it's such a powerful way to rewrite. But I think the power is actually realizing you can rewrite it, because so many people think, well, this is my story, this is how it started, and this is how it's going to end. And it's like, no, actually, you have full ability to rewrite that. And yeah, what are techniques or ways, even if I just repeat it to myself over and over again and feel into what that feels like to really believe that, or using hypnosis techniques or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
But that you can rewrite that story, and it, like, you needed to do that. I know there's been so many I've needed to rewrite from the past.
Yes.
But if you want to see a different future, which everybody can, that's what the requirement is to no longer believe those old stories, let them go, and be the author of a new future.
Absolutely.
For yourself.
And sometimes that stuff can't happen with your logical brain. That's why for me, hypnotherapy and that kind of stuff really help, because it's an unconscious thing that's happening, and you have to hit and reach those unconscious, subconscious places. And those are tougher to get to. And hypnosis helps get to the real nuggets. Sometimes you won't even realize that it's happening, or that you're doing that. You're not even aware of it.
Yeah.
So that awareness, and then maybe having somebody help facilitate going there to rework it. And it's a process.
It's a process.
It doesn't happen overnight. I think people have to be really kind to themselves in that way. I've had to be, just go, you know what? Again, stop, relax. It's going to happen in its time. It's not going to happen tomorrow. Like, it's okay. But what's weird about it, don't you feel this way? That you wake up one day and you realize, you're like, wait a minute. I don't have that issue anymore. Like, I don't have a reaction to that anymore. Somebody can say something and I'm not reacting. Or I can see this on TV, or I can hear this music and it's not a trigger. It doesn't bother me. It gets healed.
Yeah.
It gets healed.
Yeah.
And
when you look at it and you face it and you're willing to then go into it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can be healed. It's just like any cut, It's that's what life is. It's about those discoveries and healing those parts of yourself.
When you look back on this journey, because I know I'd asked you when we talked on the phone a while back, and I said if you could teach about all the things that you learned from this experience, right? If we are going to look, or if we look at something as it happened for a reason, because there's usually some growth or lessons that we were going to learn from this experience, what do you see are some of the lessons that you've gotten from
everything?
Yeah,
well, a lot. I think I'm a different person completely than I was before this happened.
What's the difference?
I think the biggest thing is the validation part. I think really being comfortable in my own skin and not wishing I was something else or someone else or somewhere else or doing something else. I mean, there's just a million things that you have that conversation, and there's an appreciation for life that happens where it doesn't matter. Money, objects, people talk about that, but it's really hard to live in a space where you're just really okay with the now. It's just taking that moment. I think everything's brighter. It's so cliche, but it is.
Yeah.
Everything's a little brighter. I mean, I have moments all the time. I'm on the beach last week, and there was this moment. We were in Laguna, and my kids were running around acting crazy, and there was just this light over the water. We were kind of up on this steps, and it just caught me, and I looked at it, and I was like, oh, it took my breath away, and there was this moment of taking it in that I don't think I took things in like that before. I think I just passed them by. I noticed stuff was pretty.
Yeah.
But you take it in differently.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful, and you're like, wow, life is kind of amazing.
Life is really amazing if you choose to see it that way.
Yeah.
And there's so much beauty and wonder and just incredibleness of our planet and of life and what we can experience. And I think so often we create in our mind what it is that we think we want to see, that we actually lose out on seeing what is right in front of us that is just as magical and beautiful. And I know there's so much of like the Buddhist philosophy that I am ascribed to, and I know they say, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Absolutely.
And the suffering usually comes from the perspective of this shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So if we look at our body and you're going, oh, well, this shouldn't be, now we suffer. Or if your partner's acting in a way you don't want to, you're like, this shouldn't be, and then now they're the problem.
Totally.
Or your kids, or your bank account, or whatever it might be. And instead, again, looking through maybe the eyes of curiosity and wonder, and that will release the resistance.
Yes, totally.
Even maybe going through hard stuff like cancer or any other illness. Not saying that you're like, okay, I'll I'll like fully accept and not fight, but letting that resistance go.
Yeah. And sort of, again, riding the wave, going on the journey, experiencing it. And it's this whole idea. And I talk to my daughter about this a lot. She's 8 years old. And she's really at this age where I try to remind her, want what you have. Want what you have.
Ooh.
You know, want what you have.
Yes.
Instead of, because little kids are so about next thing. So I'm trying to instill that in her, and just so she knows, it becomes kind of a mantra with her. I'm like, want what you have, honey. It's that thing, that other, this isn't what is gonna make you happy. It's hard with the children. You kind of have to reiterate it a lot. but I'm reminded through her. Too, because every time I say that to her, it reminds me as well. And I try to stop with her too, with the kids. They're a good reminder to say, hey guys, check this out. Like, wow, look at this, or look at that insect. Look at this, taking in everything that is around us in our environment. And when there's so much ugly in the world too, when this stuff is happening in our world, all the more reason to take those moments and really hold on to them and teach them to get through that stuff, because they're asking a lot of questions. Yeah. My kids are asking a lot of questions. They see what's happening and they're like, what is this? And it's tough. How do you grapple with that? How do you grapple with that kind of pain and what's happening? And when you want to live your life with love and truth and
well, I think that almost has you expand that. When you see that darkness, it's like, well, wait, let me start to shine my light brighter, because light and dark cannot coexist in the same space.
And that's the thing I've been saying is the only good thing to me coming out of what's been going on in the world with all the craziness is that it is making people stop and go, which side am I on? Hold up. Which side am I on? Am I on this light side, dark side? Like I don't want to say light or dark, but it's more about just, am I going to be a compassionate human being or am I going to be a fearful human being? Which choice?
Love or fear.
Yeah, and you have that choice. And I think sometimes when stuff goes down, it really makes it very clear and you have to step up. And so kind of group consciousness can come together. And that's an opportunity for us. So that's how I'm choosing to look at it, because otherwise I get a little crazy about it all. I do. It's hard for me to watch. I'm very empathetic. I take it on. I'm like, oh my God.
You feel it.
Yeah.
Where are you now with your cancer journey?
Treatment. I'm a little over a year in remission. So it will be, it's a year we're in September, so a year as of last month. Cancer-free.
Yay.
No surgeries. I'm healthy.
Yes.
And I'm just trying to keep that going, enjoy it, keep my careers, come back. And blossoming again. I've gotten it, that's been a journey, kind of, getting that all back and working again. My husband's working again. He's happy. He's like, thank God. He had to take care of me all. Boy, that bonded us too. So that was, that can make or break partnerships too.
Yeah, it's really beautiful that brought you closer together, and it says a lot about who he is. And sticking it out and just being such a strong source of love and strength for you and for your kids as you were going through that.
Yeah, he says something. He taught me a lot, I gotta say. I gotta give him a lot of credit, actually, which I haven't done to get through all this. I was saying a lot of it's me, but it is also him, because one thing he always says, you can always tell the worth of a person when they're on their knees. And he says the worth and the strength of a person when they're on their knees. He always says that. That's his saying. He goes, when you're on your knees, that's when you really see it. And we were on our knees. He was on his knees, but he was the strongest man on his knees. I mean, man, he really shone through, he shined bright through that and was my support system. So, I think that's an important thing to look at with people. You learn a lot about people. And I was quite lucky to have him. Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
So I have 3 questions for you that I ask every guest. It's the Unlock Your Heart round.
Okay.
You ready?
Let me take a drink of water.
Do it. All right.
I'm ready.
All right. What's something unique about you that most people don't know?
I am a science nerd.
What?
Yeah, I'm a science nerd. I think not a lot of people know that, except if you're really close to me. I am a medical journal junkie, like science nerd. Like I probably would have been a scientist if I could have stayed in school longer and not been an actress.
That's probably why you liked researching too.
Yes, that was the part.
Yeah.
Totally. I can watch those science shows. I can read medical journals for hours and hours and hours, like the real ones. I'm really fascinated by everything mitochondria and this and that. I mean, it's like a real hidden passion of mine, and that's something I love.
Love it.
Yeah.
So you got the creative and like the analytical.
Yeah. I don't know if it's analytical. I wonder if it feels creative to me. It's just amazing, that world. I'm in awe by scientists and that it's just a world that I feel like, well, not in this lifetime, but I admire it. Boy, I can sit and I'm so fascinated by it.
I love it.
Yeah.
When you're in a really dark place, what is your go-to to get out?
Breathing, listening, and being. In that order. Breathing, listening, being. I think that's what I did. Letting it come in, hear those messages, let them speak to you, and then be that. Walk that's your authentic self talking. That's your higher self talking.
Yeah.
Listening to that higher voice. My mom always said to me growing up, as long as you're living in truth and love, you'll always be walking your highest path. Truth and love.
I love it.
It's important, that I always kind of check in to that. Am I being truthful to myself first and to others? Am I being honest?
Good question.
Those are the questions. Am I doing that? You check in. You're on your highest path if you're checking into those things and you're doing that. It can feel, stuff can all feel wrong, but if you check back into that, you're usually on the right path.
I love those.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 10-year-old self?
Oh man, my 10-year-old self. My 10-year-old self was kind of fierce though.
Oh.
So I
she's
sometimes
like,
think I'm
she's
trying
telling
to
you, I don't need any of your advice.
Yeah,
okay?
I almost think that my journey is getting back to my 10-year-old self, because my 10-year-old self had it going on, actually.
Tell me about her.
Yeah, she was fierce. I was a fearless little kid, and the death of my dad sent me on a different path that I had to go on to realize to the world and figure stuff out. But I think my 10-year-old self knew something about the world, knew that you go for it, you jump, you take risks, you love big, don't care about what people think, go for it. Don't be afraid to live that life that, that little voice, the voice that tells you all the little things creep in. Oh, you can't, forget those. Go for it. Go for it. This is the time. Yeah. You got to just leap.
Yep.
You got to just, and I think that's what my 10-year-old self
what she would tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't need to tell her anything. She's like, hold on, let me give you some advice.
Yeah. Exactly. Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. One of the things that reminds me of is one of my mantras sometimes in the moments when I'm like, is, and what your 10-year-old basically told me, but I'm going to paraphrase, is do it scared.
Yes.
So even if you got those little voices saying you can't, or it's too scary, or what if you fail, but you're going for it, it's like, just do it scared.
Yes. I love that. Do it scared. Absolutely. And kids are good at that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you teach them, that's why it's important to teach kids, like, not to be too fearful of things. I'm a big proponent of not doing the, watch out, be careful, don't do that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that right now, and I try very hard to be like, I watch them and I'm like, oh, they're walking. Let them, because you have to let your body feel it. And sometimes even if, obviously if it's too dangerous, I'm not gonna let them walk on the edge of a crater or anything, whatever. But seriously, it's important. I feel like it starts with children. We sometimes teach our children to be fearful of everything. We have to.
Well, yeah, because parents project their own fears on them. Because if you're like, I would never do that, then you shouldn't either.
Yeah.
Well, who says let them learn?
Yeah, they do, and they have to find their bodies. We also have to find how our bodies work in something. You know what I mean? Like, we can't jump. You got to jump to figure out how it feels.
Yep.
So
jump.
So jump
and feel it.
Yeah,
all of it.
All of it. Yeah. Seriously, it's
Daya,
an amazing thing.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing all your beautiful wisdom, and for being such a powerful inspiration.
Thank you.
And seeing your will to fight.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This was nice.